What's going on, everybody? Welcome into an episode of the Denver Sports Podcast, TDSP. I'm Harrison Wind. We are remote today, not in the Toyota Lounge, but that's okay because I still got my guy, Mitch Carroll, with me. Mitch, what's going on?
Beautiful day in Denver, baby. Enjoying summer. Going remote. I always dig a remote show. I've been working on my backdrop here.
It looks good. It looks
good.
good. You got little rapids there.
I got the Jamal
like
shot.
David. Oh, that's the Jamal shot. Some
Fat Lever up there. Fat Lever, Joe Sakic, Larry Walker. Boom, boom, boom.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm not in Denver. I'm jealous. I'm out in at the in-laws' house, Southern California, Temecula to be exact.
Let's go. Sounds nice to me.
It's all right. It's hot as shit. It's actually like the hottest place ever. It's hotter than Vegas. It's hotter than Phoenix. It's tough.
Okay, no, I'm happy with here.
They do have good wine country out here. I mean, they have okay wine country out here, but there is wine country. So
yeah,
it's not bad.
Can't beat it.
What I thought we could do on today's show, and we might do this on Friday as well in a part 2. Best and worst draft picks in Denver sports. I was listening to a couple podcasts of some other markets that were doing this, so I thought we could do this definitely on today's show. Because, man, there's a lot to pick from. We can talk Nuggets, Broncos, little Avs. We got a nomination of an Avs draft pick who never actually played with the team. I feel like he deserves some mention here.
Yes.
So, yeah, let's get to it. I thought we could start with maybe the best draft pick ever in Denver sports history. It might not be close. Obviously, Nikola Jokic is who we're talking about. The 41st pick in round 2 in 2014. What an amazing pick. 3-time MVP, best player in franchise history in the second round. Those types of players never come from the second round. And if you look at that draft, it's actually funny. We could start here. But I was looking at the guys selected around him in the 40s in the second round that year. Some okay players, actually. Spencer Dinwiddie, 38. Jeremy Grant, 39. Dwight Powell, 45. Jordan Clarkson, 46.
Okay.
Vasa Micic, 52. That's about it. But you don't get an MVP at 41 overall, especially in the second round of the NBA draft.
No, I mean, it could be the best draft pick in any sport, period, in any city. These are guys that you think, okay, they'll be on the summer league team. Maybe they'll stick around for their rookie contract. If they sign a second contract, it's a win on a second round NBA guy, right? Like that's kind of what your ceiling is that you hope he can convince us to re-sign and be some part of this team a second time. But no, I mean, Jokic is far and away the choice of this podcast. I mean, it's not even close.
Especially back then. I feel like right now, second round picks, especially if you're like 40, if you're in the top 40, because that's still, the first 10 picks of the second round, especially now, there's an expectation of like, okay, we actually have to not completely bust on this pick because like good teams are trying to build through the draft now with the second apron and stuff. Everybody's just gotten a little better at drafting. It feels like, especially over the last, 5 years or so, you don't see as many busts in that range, but you're totally right. Like second round picks to the middle and late portions of that round, you're just hoping they make it on your roster. I feel like you're just hoping they can like give you something good, third string guy, maybe the back end of your rotation. But the 2 picks he was flanked by, 40, Glenn Robinson the third, never amounted to anything. I mean, he was an okay back end.
He probably played for 3 or 4 teams, maybe. Yeah.
Had like a 6-7 year career. I guess that's okay at 40. the guy after him, Nick Johnson, who was actually on the Nuggets for like a year.
Oh
He
yeah.
played, never amounted to anything out of Arizona. But yeah, I mean, the Nuggets got lucky, but they also had a little feeling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of even like, I mean, there are like some really good picks, right? Like Jalen Brunson was pick 33, and you're like, man, that's a great pick. That's a starting point guard, max level guy. Although I guess he gave the Knicks a discount, but he's like an all NBA level dude. But like that's kind of like the extreme end, I guess. Draymond, is another one, but for Jokic to be so far and away clear of those guys that he basically breaks the like what is a great second round pick conversation by himself, right? Like, yeah, sure, those guys are fine, but not an MVP, not a 3-time MVP, not a finals MVP. It's kind of funny how it's like, oh yeah, those were okay. That's fine. Jokic clears by a mile.
Some other good second round picks: Chris Middleton,
Yes.
Gilbert Arenas, Paul Millsap.
That's like, pre full like AAU transition and having mountains and mountains of tape on people and not a ton of national games. Even he was at Arizona. Is that right?
Gilbert Arenas, yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously some national TV games and scouts are still going to get to those, but that's the fact that he fell that far is actually kind of impressive.
Marc Gasol. DeAndre Jordan was a second round pick.
Nuggets legend.
The Marc Gasol thing is funny because I had heard that, and I put the story out there before, but for everybody who hadn't heard it, but when Tim Connelly was with the Wizards, he passed on Marc Gasol in, a draft that he was kind of running. I think he was, one of the head scouting guys with the Wizards back then. And then Marc Gasol was drafted in 2007, 48th overall pick. And I believe the Wizards were picking 47th in that draft. And they ended up taking Dominic McGuire. Never amounted to
Tough look for our guy Tim there. Tough look.
But the thing is, I had actually heard that he regretted not taking Marc Gasol. And when he was in the position to take Jokic, obviously not close to the same player, but there's some similarities in terms of Jokic to Gasol, a little out of shape. Does he have the athleticism to stick in the NBA? And I had heard that like not picking Gasol aided him for years.
Yeah.
And so he didn't want to make that same mistake in passing on Jokic.
That's really interesting. Like, yeah, I mean, you're really, especially, Marc Gasol kind of has the benefit of being Pau Gasol's brother, right? Like Jokic doesn't have that connection, like a household name associated with him where it's like, okay, we'll take a fire on that guy. Like this was a complete shot in the dark. And it's kind of funny too. Like you have to like kind of knock the Nuggets a little bit because they did pick two other players ahead of him. So like, sure, they picked him 41st, but if they had any idea of what he was going to be, they would have picked him, 15th or wherever. Was it Gary Harris that went that year? Yeah. So, it's funny because if they had any idea that they wouldn't have picked Nurkic where they picked Nurkic, right? They wouldn't have picked Harris where they picked Harris. So I always think that's really funny to think about. Like, yeah, great pick, but you can't say you knew.
Of course. They picked Gary Harris at what was it? Gary Harris at 19 and Yusuf Nurkic at 16.
There it is. Yeah, 16 and 19. Actually, man, that's funny. We just talked about that. I was on the steps back in the day before I worked for DNVR, and D-Line fed me bad information on those draft pick numbers, and I lost on like the second to last one.
You lost because he didn't know his stuff?
Well, I also didn't know, so it's mostly my fault, but he also didn't know, so I can blame him. Yeah.
Yeah, and then also in that draft, yeah, you're right. They pick Nurkic and Harris, and then famously, nobody asked Tim Connelly any questions about Nikola Jokic at the press conference after the draft.
No way. That is
nobody asked him.
That is so.
no questions about Jokic. And then he stands up and says, what? Nobody has any questions about Nikola Jokic. We actually are excited about this guy.
Good for him. Good for him. That's hilarious. There is a trend lately where like older guys are falling, even if they're really like accomplished. You know, like Herb Jones was SEC Player of the Year. He got picked second round. Dalton Connect fell pretty far in the draft this year, SEC Player of the Year. And it's just because they're older, I guess, and young is better. But I think better at basketball is better. So it's kind of crazy that these guys fall so far. But Jokic wasn't even in that camp, right? That was his first time eligible. So it's not like that was a problem either.
Nobody really just knew about him. And I don't think anybody really saw the vision with him. Like people were like, oh, he can pass it. He can shoot it. European big, good IQ. But I don't think anybody realized the potential that there was. Like I remember most people pegged him as, backup center. He could be a backup center in the NBA. Maybe he could start like on a bad team. I think it was phrased that way. I think people were confident in his skill set. Just nobody saw the potential. I think that's where the disconnect really was in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're not exactly splitting the atom here by calling this the best pick. It's that's going to be an NBA trivia question for forever, right? Is what's the best NBA draft pick? And it's going to be Jokic. It's hard to imagine anyone with that level of skill ever falling that far again, right? I think people are now going to be more tantalized by skill than athleticism, and I think that was kind of what let him fall. And I think they're realizing now that if you have an NBA strength coach and conditioning and the system to get guys in shape, the skill will come through even better. So hopefully he kind of helped GMs figure that out a little bit.
Well, also now I feel like especially bad teams earlier in the draft are almost, and we definitely saw this in this last draft, maybe because it was a bad draft, but teams are really willing to take huge flyers. I feel like maybe even more than they used to be. Like
Right.
Charlotte took that guy Salon out of France, who's like barely 19 years old and is definitely 2 years away from, being 2 years away.
Right.
Like he might not turn out to be anything. He could be something, but he might be nothing.
He could be Bruno Caboclo. Was that his name? Yes. The Brazilian guy?
Who actually, I don't know, looked pretty good in the Olympics.
That is so funny. That was him. I was like, there's no way. That is hilarious. Good for him sticking around, really. That is, man. Yeah, the Flyers, right? I mean, I think that's kind of the Giannis effect too. Is well, we saw something, let's go for it, and you just kind of get tantalized. And I do think there's a couple other Nuggets picks that, I think a lot of people are going to point to Jokic, Jamal being, mid lottery, but I think there's some really good ones that we can dig into here.
For sure. We'll get to all that on the other side. Last note about Jokic, though. Him being able to come to Denver when there was no other like established guy, and the other really young foundational piece that the Nuggets had that he played next to, we'll probably get to in a little bit. But the fact that he was the first guy in the door, the fact that he got here before Jamal Murray, and like they just formulated and like went into the Jokic system instead of the Jamal Murray system.
Right.
I always feel like that was so crucial, because if Jamal Murray got more established and established himself before Jokic did, then I don't know if we get to Jokic ball. Like, I don't know if Jokic becomes the guy he was if Murray's already here.
Right. And if there's a coach who's willing to see out invest the time in a second round pick, and if there's the teammates that are willing to kind of shed what they know about watching basketball and accept kind of this unorthodox way. I mean, it's like the exact, it almost feels like a football pick where there's just so many factors that had to be right. And you have to credit so many people across the whole organization, players, coaches, staff. Every little thing had to be the right mix. It's very impressive. I mean, it's so impressive.
Yeah. All right, let's hit a break. We'll get to some other best picks and definitely some worst picks in a second. Guys, if you're really busy, if you work a lot, if you don't have time to cook, check out Factor meal kits. Warmer, sunnier days are calling. Fuel up for them with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals in time for summer. Thanks to the menu of chef crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, and Keto. So, whatever diet you're on, whatever food restrictions you have, Factor meals can work with you to fit those. They're not frozen. You get them, you put them in your fridge, put it in the microwave for 2 minutes. They are good to go. You can choose from over 35 different meals, more than 60 add-ons to choose from every single week, tons of different flavors. And like I said, no matter what diet, no matter how you eat, Factor definitely has options from you. They have breakfast also. They have dessert. You can treat yourself to restaurant quality meals with premium ingredients. So go to factormeals.com/DNVR50. Get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. Code DNVR50, factormeals.com. Get 50% off plus 20% off your next month. So a huge discount here at factormeals.com and use the code DNVR50. Also, make sure to check out Toyota. Really love that these guys are partners at DNVR. Trucks have always been a part of Toyota's DNA. For generations, Toyota has built durable legends destined for greatness, perfect for Colorado. Whether you're conquering off-road trails or hauling the way of the world, there's a Toyota truck that's right for you. Check out the 2024 Tacoma. Check out the return of the 2024 iconic Land Cruiser. They offer 17 models with available all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive like the Epic 4Runner. Especially if you're living in Colorado, you need a vehicle for every type of condition. Driving on the highway, sitting in traffic, or if you're going up to the mountains. Toyota, they have tons of different models, perfect for every occasion. They have more low and zero emission vehicles combined than any other automaker. So if you need a new car, check out Toyota. Visit your Front Range Toyota stores at a location near you. AutoNation Toyota, Arapahoe, and Centennial. Corwin Toyota in Boulder, Groove Toyota in Littleton, Mountain States Toyota in Denver, Stevenson Toyota East in Aurora, Stevenson Toyota West in Lakewood. Toyota is a proud partner of the Denver Nuggets. It's the official vehicle of DNVR. All right, back here on TDSP, Harrison Wind and Mitch Carroll. Where do you want to go next? We could do another best or we could do a worst.
I kind of have a sneaky best.
Okay, let's hear it.
How did the all-time NCAA career rebound leader fall 20 picks like that? It's the Manammal, man. That's a great pick.
It's an underrated good pick.
It's like, I mean, again, this is a guy that was a little older, obviously not a big school, all-time rebounder. And all he did was show that he was an amazing NBA kind of game-changing bench guy, right? A guy that can completely change the pace, out-hustle everybody, not drop a play, and you're getting 15 and 15. I mean, I was one of the true Manammal believers. I thought he played great with Jokic before he kind of fell off late. I just think to get him, in the 20s is pretty cool.
No, it was a very good pick in the 20s. And I mean, he started for most of his career, like pretty much his entire time in Denver, he started.
Right.
Started as a rookie, started 80 games as a sophomore, 80 more games his third season. He was like the mainstay at power forward. And then, Jokic gets here, and you're right. Like, they had great chemistry off the bat. I mean, some of the iconic early Jokic highlights are lobs to Ken Free.
Right. And I wish it worked. I wish there was one more contract in there. But I am glad it worked. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I loved the Manammal, man.
I mean, fan favorite, exciting player, played hard, especially on
Right.
offense. I don't know about on
Right.
defense, but played hard. And then when he left Denver, he fell off the face of the earth. I mean, he was out of the
Yeah.
league like a year after he left Denver.
Right. He ended up in China, maybe? Does that sound right?
Yeah, he
Yeah.
did.
Man, he must have gotten 1 billion rebounds in the CBL.
Yeah, probably led the CBL in rebound rate, I guess.
All right, let's go bad.
All right, what do you got for bad?
We're sticking with Nuggets, right?
We can go other sports too, or we can stick with
No,
Nuggets.
let's go with Nuggets. Let's go with Nuggets. It's Tyler Lydon for sure, and that was your guy. Not your guy because you liked him, but your guy when we were talking about this show.
Yeah,
because it's not Donovan Mitchell. and really that makes it the worst is you thought you had your guy and you didn't. It wasn't OG, it wasn't Donovan Mitchell, and it's Tyler Lydon. Womp womp.
2017 draft, the Nuggets take Tyler Lydon 24th overall, and they traded back to get him. They were originally picking at 13. They traded back with the Jazz, and they got the 24th pick and Trey Lyles.
Embarrassing.
And the story was that they wanted OG Anunoby. They thought he was going to be available at 24. And the Toronto Raptors and Masai Ujiri, picking at 23, picked him one spot ahead of Denver. And then Denver kind of, I think, in a panic, takes Tyler Lydon. He was on the Nuggets for 2 seasons and pretty much out of the league ever since. I think got back in with the Kings, maybe the G League, but pretty much out of the league.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, just a huge swing and a miss. I mean, the NBA draft to me is only generally, you're lucky to get to 20, right? Like at 20, pretty much everything is going to be a crapshoot. There's going to be hits, there's going to be big misses. But to say you're passing on a guy who ends up being all NBA, 50-pointer in the playoffs, truly a him guy to Tyler Lydon. I mean, did he even play a full season worth of games in his career?
He played a total of 26 games, Mitch.
Oh,
he played one game as a rookie and then somehow got in for 25 games. I mean, all of those were garbage time. His second season somehow did play in 25 games. He played 94 total minutes.
Yikes. Yeah. No, he was never anything and was bad. And it's a bummer because could you imagine having the world where Jamal and Donovan Mitchell are a backcourt with Jokic and you're scoring like 135 a game is just, it's crazy that we could have had that. So
what's so interesting about that, man, is if you think back to where the Nuggets were at that point. So 2017, they have Jokic. By then, Jokic is something. You don't know he's an MVP, but right. I think he's a potential all-star and, potential top guy on a future really good championship type of team. You have, Jamal Murray at that point, correct?
Yeah.
2017.
Yeah, he was the 2016 draft. So, and he
played
a lot.
Him a year earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
He played as a rookie the year before. He looked good. Probably figured he was, going to be your future starter once you got Emmanuel Mudiay out of there. But then you also had Gary Harris at the 2. And that season, I mean, Gary Harris was coming off a year where he averaged, 15 points, 42% from 3. He looked like he could be your potential 2 guard of the future and was for a little bit.
Well, and that was
a bit of a logjam.
I think Zach Lowe called it one of the worst rookie seasons ever that Gary had. So for the fact that he came around with 15 points a year later, and what you said, the 19th pick, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I just think part of the reason Denver didn't take Donovan Mitchell was because they already had two guards that they loved, Jamal Murray
Right.
and Gary Harris.
Yeah.
I think that was part of it.
We brought up Moutier. I like the idea of picking Moutier, but then you think, man, could they have gotten Devin Booker instead? Now, Devin Booker didn't start on that Kentucky team. The Harrison twins were older, and they, that was the team that went undefeated to the Final Four. And he was good, but you kind of questioned, was he really that guy? And man, if the season sort of played out the same, and you can draft Jamal Murray a year after drafting Devin Booker instead of Emmanuel Moutier, right? I can't think of anyone else that's like too big of a regret after him. But that's the big one. That draft kind of sucked, I guess.
It was a bad draft. It was the Towns draft. He went 1, D'Angelo Russell 2, Porzingis was in that draft, Moutier at 7, and then the only other good players in the lottery behind him were Devin Booker and Miles Turner.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Kelly Oubre, no.
And I think the Nuggets really liked Booker in that draft, but they ended up taking Moutier. And at the time, man, Moutier was like the right pick to make.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. I think he's athletic. He was young. He had like he was one of those early non-college guys, but post high school draft eligibility, right? Yeah. So he went to China, and then he's kind of just this athletic mystery. And I mean, it all worked out, right? So I can't be too mad, but I had high hopes. I'll never forget the stupid firefighter photo shoot with him where he has like the hat and the hose and the everything.
I don't know if I remember that.
I'll find it and I'll send it to Tiff on the producing.
Yeah.
Oh, so funny.
You're totally right about it did work out, but he was still a massive bust. He was terrible. Yes. Like, that's what it comes down to. He was so bad, man. Like, he was so bad that the next year Denver didn't feel bad about taking another point guard at the same spot in the draft, pretty much, than Jamal Murray. Yeah. And he was like, he never got better. I mean, that was the thing with Moutier. He looked like the can't miss guy. Like you said, 6'5", strong body, like was pretty developed in terms of like his strength, it seemed like, for a guy who was only 18 years old. Blue chip guy in high school, one and done. Looked like he was going to be an elite type of defender. But he never got better. His jump shot never improved. He never got better with ball handling. His vision, his basketball IQ never leveled up. Defensively, he was never that good, and he should have been elite defensively. And part of me always felt bad for Moutier because he was thrust into the spotlight here, 18 years old. He was clearly not ready for it. And there were a lot of expectations on his shoulders. Just the expectations were like to turn the Nuggets around. And look, like some of that comes with the territory of being a top 7 pick. Like you welcome that, or you should welcome that. But he was clearly never ready for it. And it was clear, I think, midway through that second season, it was not going to work out.
He did have that game winner against the Sixers. The deep.
The luckiest game winner ever.
Yeah, correct. That was it. But that talked me into another few months of Moutier. Even though Jamal was on the bench, I was like, oh, it's going to work. I believe again.
Wasn't it like almost a half quarter?
It was like, and it like the ball got away from him. So he like was picking it up from the ground, and like his buildup was literally like straight arm extended to the ground, pull up and let it go. Truly terrible.
I'm gonna call that the fakest game winner ever.
That is awesome. Yeah, put it up there with Corey Brewer's 50-point game. There's a few other fake performances like that.
The stories you heard about Moutier too, like I remember because I think he had two older brothers who were, very present at Nuggets games and stuff and kind of were his circle at the time. And I remember stories about like Michael Malone coming off the court and them cursing and yelling at him in the tunnel
Right.
for how he was coaching and like playing his brother. It was bad.
Oh no. I hate that. I'm glad Jokic bros have only had good vibes. So, mostly good vibes. Yeah, debatable. Not the worst draft pick though. I still don't think we've actually hit on the worst Nuggets draft pick, right?
Probably not. We'll get to it on the other side here. Let's hit a break real quick. Guys, we got so many events going on at DNVR over the summer, including Broncos tailgates. Before every home game, we set out on this mission years ago. We wanted to have the best Broncos tailgate in the city at the stadium, and I think we've accomplished that. Mitch, you were at the first tailgate for the first preseason home game. It was popping, right?
Oh yeah, we had like 6 beer pong games, 3 bags. We had all the camping chairs out to be all, if you wanted to grab a seat in the corner, music blasting, Illegal Pete's catered it. It was perfect. It was almost 100 people there for a preseason game.
So our tailgate's located at Sports Fan. It's on Federal, right next to the stadium. You can get tickets, thednvr.com/events for every single home game. Food, drinks, games, beer pong. We got Primo Hoagies there, Breck Brew / Breck Distillery, yard games. Like I said, the view is awesome. Also, it's like right up on the hill next to the stadium. You can get season passes to the tailgate as well. thednvr.com/events. The best thing to do before a Broncos game. A great vibe, just a bunch of Broncos fans hanging out, and like great food and drinks too. All for not that much money. So check it out before the next Broncos home game.
Yeah, and if you don't want to mess with parking down there, you can come to the bar and take a bus over there, and the bus will take you back to the bar after the game.
Absolutely. Also, check out Bet365. That's what we use to bet here at DNVR. And even though it's summer, tons of stuff to bet on at Bet365. You can bet on baseball. You can use the code DNVR365 to sign up and choose between 2 offers. Bet and get offer. Place a bet of $5 or more. Get $150 in bonus bets. Or a first bet safety net offer. Place a bet up to $1,000 if your qualifying bet loses. You get a matched refund in bonus bets. You can also take advantage of their MLB early payout offer with the Bet365 baseball early payout offer. You're a winner if your team goes 5 runs ahead with an instant payout. Parlay and same game parlay selections will be marked as winners as well. So if you want to bet, check out Bet365. Must be 21 plus, physically located in Colorado. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, back here on TDSP, Harrison Wind and Mitch Carroll. I don't want to hammer on Moutier anymore. I think
no.
we're done. I don't want to hammer on him more.
Because he wasn't even the worst one.
Who do you think was the worst one?
It's got to be Skeeter, right?
Nicholas Skeetishvili. I think so.
Right? 5th pick, 2002. You miss Amari in the draft. I mean, that kind of, you end up with, if Amari's not good enough to lift the team, you could realistically be rolling with Amari and Carmelo Anthony as your core.
It worked out great for the Knicks.
It really did. You're right. Hey, good point. I mean, there's even some other guys that like aren't, huge names, but Caron Butler, Tayshaun was in that draft. Tayshaun Prince, John Salmons, Carlos Boozer. But honestly, even those names are probably like there's even worse names that would still be a good pick in comparison. Oh, Matt Barnes was the 46th pick. Fellow podcaster. Luis Scola. I mean, there's like a lot.
Totally. So Skeeter really was taken, after Dirk Nowitzki. When was Dirk drafted again? Dirk Nowitzki.
98.
He was drafted in '98 by Dallas, and so Skeeter was 5 years later or 4 years later. Everybody was trying to find the next Dirk Nowitzki, especially like if you're a team like the Nuggets.
Right.
Nobody likes to play in Denver. Like we're looking for a franchise guy. The influx of European prospects was really hitting here, and everybody was trying to find the next Dirk. And the Nuggets president at the time, Kiki Vandeweghe, he was actually working for the Mavs when they had Dirk Nowitzki. So he comes to Denver and he wants to draft the next Dirk, and they pick this guy Skeeter. And I mean, it's hard to bust harder than Skeeter did in Denver. He was never good, overwhelmed by the size and athleticism of the NBA. He was a big man as well, 7-footer. In theory, he could shoot a little bit. He was skilled, but he was terrible. He was awful.
His career, obviously he bombs out of the NBA, but he was playing professional basketball until 2019.
Yeah.
That's crazy. But you're right.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, Nuggets, Warriors, Wolves, Suns, and he's gone. And then you never even, he's playing in Puerto Rico and in Israel and, all over. Like, plays in Beirut. Like, good for him making a career out of it. But, oof, tough pick when you have a guy like Amari sitting there. And they did get Nene, who was drafted a little bit, 2 picks after him. Which shout out Nene. Love that guy. Man.
Great draft pick.
7th. I mean, the Knicks didn't want him. We'll take him. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, drafting Europeans back then was so hard.
Right.
You didn't have the connections with the European scouting world to get a real read on these guys. Teams just didn't watch these guys play nearly as much as they do now. Like when teams draft a European guy, especially high in the first round, they've gone over to watch him play not even multiple times, like double-digit times. Like they have a scout station in there over in Europe whose job it is to give intel on this guy every single day. Like guys in Europe are drafted so much more seriously now than they were back then. I remember there were stories that like the Nuggets never even saw him play. Allegedly, I think he did do a workout like with the Nuggets, but it wasn't against like NBA players or there was something like that.
No, it was against Kiki Vandeweghe and like his staff.
Yeah.
And it's not like he was
actually knows what the story is.
Right. I mean, he was playing for a team he was playing in the Italian league, I guess. That is, that you can't knock it too much, but that was only for a year. Before that, he was in the Slovenian second division. Right. And then before that, he was playing in Georgia. And it's like, if you didn't see him, like if he wasn't good enough that a highlight lands on your desk, right? Like if somehow, like whether it's a play, a game, whatever, if that doesn't land on your desk, you shouldn't do it. Like should not do it. The EuroLeague was big enough that you had, it was on TV, like maybe not here. You already had to get a, weird satellite channel or whatever. But if a scout can't see him play, don't do it. I can't believe we have to say that out loud. That's kind of what it feels like.
Totally. And like back then the Nuggets were like desperately looking for anything to jumpstart their team. I mean, this is 2002. The Nuggets went 27-55 the season before with Skeeter. This first year they went, of course, famously 17-65, one of the worst records ever in an NBA season. And like they were totally desperate. I mean, it did, I guess, set them up to get Carmelo Anthony a couple years later or a year later, but definitely has a case for the worst draft pick in Denver sports history.
Yeah, totally. You're right. You're right. Should we get into some Broncos maybe?
Let's do it. Who do you got?
Paxton Lynch.
Yeah.
Paxton Lynch was a joke. I mean, he is a joke. Like, he wasn't good in college. He didn't play at a big school. He was rumors before the draft that he like failed the the whiteboard exam, right? Like drawing up plays, recognizing playbooks, all that kind of stuff. And it's like this is your first pick post Peyton, and how you're not going for like a pedigree, Michigan guy or a USC guy or whatever it is. I just don't know how you end up. It's just a disaster. Just a disaster.
Do you remember what the scouting report was on him back then? Like, why was he a guy that the Broncos got excited about?
He was big and had a cannon.
Yeah.
He was, kind of Elway-esque in that way. Big dude, huge arm.
6'7"? He was really 6'7"?
He's a big dude. He's a big dude. Yeah, I mean, Elway he drafted Brock too, right? I mean, a 6'8" and a 6'7" quarterback.
Brock was even taller.
I think that's when we kind of realized that we don't want statues in the pocket anymore, right? Like, you need mobility is key. And I think Elway was just a few years too late on learning that lesson. And that's how you end up with Paxton Lynch and Brock Osweiler in the same quarterback room. And years of futility ahead. Just years.
He only played 5 games.
Yeah, total. He played more games in the USL or XFL, or I forget which one he ended up in.
6 games in the USFL, 5 games in the XFL. So he more than doubled his output in Denver. But do you know how bad you have to be drafted in the first round to a team that is looking for a quarterback and only get in for 5 games and only start 4 of those?
That's crazy. That's really crazy.
They went 1-4 in his start, or sorry, 1-3 in his starts.
That is yikes. Because I mean, it was Brock, right? I'm trying to see the other quarterbacks on here. Either way, just massive swing and a miss. Massive swing and miss. There was a rumor that Jerry Jones really liked him. And you think of the world where Jones doesn't draft Dak that year and they draft Paxton, and then the Broncos get a good quarterback instead. That's really the biggest miss. It's tough in the, I think the NFL is the hardest to say, well, you could have had this guy, but you had Chris Jones, the Chiefs tackle, Derrick Henry. That's probably the biggest one. He would have been, God, after all the running backs in the 2000s that we grew up with, right? In Denver, can you imagine Henry bringing that back? That would have been sick. Justin Simmons, they picked in that draft. That was cool. Not a great draft. Dak Prescott, yeah. That's kind of the end of the line. Oh, Tyreek was late in that draft.
Yeah.
But that's about it. Yeah, tough days. Could have had Dak. Good job, John. Good job.
So yeah, that was a terrible draft pick.
Yeah.
I was actually looking at just a complete list of recent Broncos draft picks.
Mm-hmm.
There aren't a lot of good ones.
No. No, there's not.
I want to nominate another recent Broncos draft pick for worst pick.
Oh, I love it. Let's go.
And that was Jerry Jeudy.
Ooh.
Jerry Jeudy drafted 15th overall in 2020. And if you remember, man, This was a
Yeah.
draft that was just like stock full of wide receivers. Because also in this draft, you had
It was
CeeDee
yeah.
Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Brandon Ayuk. And all those guys were taken after Jerry Jeudy at 15.
T. Higgins. Ugh. Man. Because even some of those
Henry
lesser
Ruggs was
guys,
the
right?
only guy. Henry Ruggs was the only wide receiver, I think, taken ahead of him.
And classic
And
Raiders pick in more ways than one, right?
Yeah.
Did a horrible thing and was very fast. There you go. Sign him up. But yeah, I mean, the fact that you could have had Justin Jefferson alone,
Or
right?
CeeDee
Like
Lamb.
that alone, right? CeeDee Lamb, Ayuk, who's available now, and you're gonna have to way overspend. You're right. That's bad. To somehow, I mean, Jeudy was pretty awesome in college, but it was Alabama, right? I mean, he had Ruggs on that team. He had there was another, I mean, how many NFL guys on those teams that he played on? Tua throwing to him.
Was it Devon Smith?
Yeah, Devontae Smith. Yeah.
Yeah.
And not bad having Tua and Jalen Hurts throw to you through your career and stuff. So unfortunate that you end up with maybe the worst of them, except for Ruggs, obviously. That is a tough beat. I didn't even think of Jeudy when you brought this up, but that is a really good one.
It was just the best wide receiver draft in a while, and you got like the worst one out of the guys taken in the first round.
Really?
T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., KJ Hamler, who the Broncos then took in the second round, also a bust.
Oh, man. And Ayuk might have been after him, or was he a first-round pick?
Ayuk was 25, so before
Okay.
Hamler, after Jeudy.
Okay, fair enough. But man, yeah, Hamler, that was a bummer. That was more of an injury thing than a just not being very good thing, which was Jerry Jeudy's problem.
Yeah.
He just wasn't a good wide receiver.
It could be situation too. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Jerry Jeudy looks good with the Browns. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he still has potential there that's untapped. That just the Broncos were such a shit show the last couple of years. It was tough to look good.
Right. Can we talk another quarter? Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one more thing on this draft. This was also the COVID draft.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, from the commissioner's basement.
Yeah. So
that was a bizarre one.
I don't know if the Broncos just like weren't on the same page, but
that is an interesting. Not. Do you remember the Nuggets pick that year? 2020?
Was that Bones Highland? Oh, no, was that Zeke Naji?
Must have been, right? Must have been. Interesting. I wonder if there's just a lot of notoriously bad picks are going to come out of that 2020 just because of how difficult scouting was around those times.
Yeah, it was the Zeke Naji draft. They picked him one pick after Tyrese Maxey.
Oh, God, that sucks.
And then also picked RJ Hampton. That was, I mean, Tim Conley had a lot of huge draft hits in Denver. That was a terrible draft.
Terrible.
Zeke Naji and RJ Hampton, 2 first-round picks in the 20s.
Ooh, tough look for our guy.
Then again, RJ Hampton did help the Nuggets get Aaron Gordon. So he served his purpose in that way.
Good for him. Good for him. We appreciate it.
All right. Who do you want to nominate now?
This one is interesting. I think this one's going to have some people one way, some people the other way, but it's Tim Tebow. And for me, it's one of the best.
Okay.
Only because of how bad the Broncos are at drafting quarterbacks. They drafted a quarterback and he won a playoff game on his rookie contract. I don't know if that's happened for the Broncos. Like, he is probably the best quarterback they've ever drafted.
So John Elway doesn't really count?
I guess not, because they didn't draft him. They traded for him.
Yes.
And then Cutler was good, but never won a playoff game in Denver, pouted his way out of town. See you later to the Bears. And then you just have a bunch of crap. There's just not a lot of good quarterbacks on there, right? Like Jake Plummer acquisition. Peyton Manning, free agent, right? Like,
Yep.
the big ones have never been drafted, and Tebow was the most exciting year of football in a long time. He was so fun. Those games ruled.
They did rule. It was definitely exciting. I mean, like unbelievable. Like those games that happened. I probably come down on the other side of it.
Fair
I
enough.
think it was a bad pick. He did win a playoff game, but I mean, let's be honest, Mitch, he wasn't good.
He was great in that playoff game, but you're right. That was it. He had more games where he, completed 2 passes, and
he just wasn't very good. I mean,
yeah,
he was not that he
bad.
wasn't good. He was pretty terrible, Tim Tebow. Like he was a pretty terrible quarterback. I mean, if we're being real. And another thing is like they drafted him in the first round. Wasn't the story that everybody else had like a 4th round grade on him and Josh McDaniels drafted him in the first round? Wasn't that the story?
Yeah. Yeah. Whoa, that was just a big flashback there.
Like nobody else was going to take him in the first round, and the Broncos did.
Yeah, I mean, McDaniels traded back in, right? Because they drafted Demarius in that first round ahead of him and then traded back up. Selected 25th. Broncos had acquired the pick in a trade with the Ravens. When asked how Tebow will be used, McDaniels commented that Tebow probably wouldn't start at quarterback as a rookie and that he'll play when he's ready. Woody Page liked it. Shout out to Woody Page. He set an NFL draft record for jersey sales and had the top selling jersey that year.
Well, yeah. I mean, he was a literal godsend for people.
It is crazy that he was like a super duper mega college football star. And by the draft, it was like, what are you doing with him? Right? Like, talk like a fast fall off of being like 2-time. Was he 2-time Heisman or 2-time Natty? One Heisman,
maybe
2 national championships. Yeah. 2 Maxwells. Like he was, I mean, he's one of the most decorated players of all time. And then, I guess when you draft him in the first round and he doesn't live up to that, even if you win a playoff game, pretty obvious that they were going to drop him for Peyton. So thanks for winning us a playoff game. We'll see you later.
Well, and then he was never heard from again. He was so bad that and also like having Tim Tebow was a distraction. Like absolutely. Yeah. You have so much attention that comes with it. He's just such a big name. I mean, having Tim Tebow on your team back then, it dominated just the news cycle. And so I don't blame teams for not wanting to put up with that with a guy who it was just not great at quarterback. But he was really never heard from again after he was on the Jets that year after Denver let him go.
Yeah. McDaniels must have brought him into the Pats because he signed there. Was released in August. 2 years later, signs with the Eagles. Released on released on September 5th. He threw touchdowns in preseason games for both of them, but didn't play regular season. And then signed with the Jags in 21 after leaving football to play baseball, right? And then comes back.
Oh, I forgot about the baseball chapter.
He made it all the way to AA, which is probably better than he had any rights, to do so.
He tried to do the Jordan.
It's hard. Baseball's really hard. I mean, credit for him for making it up to AAA, right? I mean, that's hard. Like, it's kind of impressive. 77 games played. I guess 1 year he hit 273 in AA. That's pretty good. 6 home runs. Man, what a guy. Tebow, man.
What's the other thing with Tebow that he only wanted to really play quarterback, especially early on? I think a lot of people were like, okay, if he was a tight end type guy, which let's be honest, that probably wouldn't have worked out either. but maybe he would have gotten more than 2 years in the league. 3 years in the league.
6'3", yeah, 6'3", 255, solid dude, not huge. Like somehow both extremely athletic and kind of not athletic at all when you watch him actually throw a football. Like,
yeah. I mean, we'll never forget the iconic pass at Broncos practice that Ryan Green captured.
Oh my God.
The most famous duck of a throw ever.
But then the dime to Demaryius to win a playoff game was pretty odd. That game was crazy. He threw for like 300 yards. Couldn't miss on the long ball, and then just went and got clobbered by the Patriots. I was trying to talk myself into that game so hard.
Who was it?
Oh, man. Just crazy. Yeah. Shout out to you,
that game he threw for Mitch, you undersold him. He threw for let me look right here. Postseason. Let's see. 316 yards, 2 touchdowns.
Dimes too. That was Eddie Royal was in that team, had a big touchdown. Which maybe Eddie Royal
ran for one too.
Yeah.
But overall, I would probably say he was not a good draft pick because he just wasn't good at quarterback.
They have some, the Broncos have Hall of Famers picked pretty late, right? Terrell Davis, 7th round, Shannon Sharpe, 7th round. Carl Mecklenburg, 12th round. Something like 300 players went picked before him, which is crazy that many players were even eligible.
Can you imagine picking that many rounds in a draft back then when scouting was so much more difficult than it is now?
I assume it just kind of turns regional at a certain point, right? Like,
oh yeah,
you're like, well, we saw this guy play at Northern Colorado, so we're gonna pick him. Like,
I saw him play one game. Coach said he's a good player, good kid. Let's try.
Him. And then you get a guy like Mecklenburg, who is kind of a, kind of in terms of the older heads, the guys that were mad at our recency bias on our rankings. You get a guy that's like a legend, basically.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool. But 12 rounds is crazy. You're right. That's insane.
I know.
There's no way you watched anything after 200, right? Like, that's just a guess.
Somebody in some back office just grinding Carl Mecklenburg tape. He's like, I don't want to jump on him in the 10th round. We got to wait on him a little more.
Need the value. Yeah. That guy's like Andre Simone is God.
8th round, it's too early. Still too early for Mecklenburg.
No, hold on, Mecklenburg. Hold. That's so funny.
I think we can get him when the draft goes to double digits. 10th round. That's more his range.
Oh my God. I can't even imagine what those war rooms were like. That must have just been ridiculous.
Oh, it was just
see. Oh, this guy.
I'm sure it was great, man.
Yeah.
I'm sure, you had like GM with like maybe a little drink in one hand, a smoke in another hand, just being like, you saw Mecklenburg one game, right?
Definite scotch being poured in that war room by round 12.
You watched him play a couple practices, right?
Terrell Davis and Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe went to Mississippi Delta, right? Or no, maybe he went to Savannah. He went to a school that Delta. Back in the he went.
They have a good lacrosse program, right?
I don't know. They're the Delta Devils. I know that. Oh no, wait. He played at Savannah State. Sorry, I'm mixing up him and I think Rod Smith. But still, tiny school. The fact that you pull a Hall of Famer, that kind of, I mean, especially now that, 7th round is basically the end of the draft. He's a little bit more modern of a draft. That is like a really crazy pick that you were able to hit on that. And then what's weird is that Terrell Davis fell that far. right? But he played at Georgia, right? I mean, that's. Oh, I guess he transferred from Long Beach, but still, I mean, you're the running back at Georgia, and end up being an NFL Super Bowl MVP. That's pretty crazy. Right. 2,000 yards.
That was when the Broncos would just draft anybody at running back, and they were churning out 2,000-yard seasons. Literally anybody.
Yeah, dude. Shout out Mike Anderson, the Marine, baby. But yeah,
that was so good. Had his whole name on the back of his jersey.
It's cool that on those Super Bowl teams, both TD and Shannon were like a part of it for being such late round guys, just being absolutely monsters. Very, very cool.
For sure. All right. That's all the time we got for today. Mitch, thanks for joining me. Thanks for running down memory lane on some of these draft picks with me. I appreciate it.
Love it, man. It's a dude's naming guys day on TDSP. It's my favorite.
Yeah, maybe we'll do it again later this week.
Love it.
Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Throw us a quick like if you're watching on YouTube. We'll be back with another TDSP later this week. Tiff, thanks for producing, and we will talk to you guys then.
We all silly like the mayor.